Okay, Chodesh Tov, everyone. Good evening. We are on the fourth mitzvah of the Sefer Torah, which is none other than Rosh Chodesh. From this week's Parashat Bo, very apropos. That's where we are going to learn this today. And we seem to have a lot of time because we are early, so today will be a longer shiur to get to Arvit. So let's begin. Lekadesh Chodashim. We are commanded to sanctify the months. Ul'aber Shanim. And to intercalate the years. That means to add another month of Adar. Bebet Din Gadol Bechokhma Samuch Ba'aretz. That is done through a Bet Din, which is great in wisdom, that was ordained in Israel. Velikboa Moadei Hashana al pi oto Kiddush. And we have to establish the Hagim based on that sanctification. Shneimar. Pasuk says in this week's parasha, Chodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodashim. Kelomar, as if to say, Keshetiru chidusha shel levana tikpeu lachem Rosh Chodesh. When you see the new appearance of the moon, that is the day of Rosh Chodesh. Or afilu lo tiruha, or even if you don't see the new moon, such as you live in Canada and it's always cloudy here in the winter, okay, unless you have a freezing cold day like today. Then, mikevan shehi reuya leheraot al pi hacheshbon hamkubal, since it would be possible to see the new moon based on the calculation that was received by tradition. Bechen tichlol mitzvah zu mitzvat ibur hashana. Included in this mitzvah is the obligation of intercalating the month into the year. Lefi sheyesod mitzvat kiddush hachodesh. The purpose of the mitzvah of sanctifying Rosh Chodesh is Kedesh Yasu Yisrael Moadei Hashem B'Moadam, so that Bnei Israel can observe the holidays in their proper times. V'chmoken mitzvat ibur hashana mizeh ha'isodi, and likewise the obligation of intercalating a month into the year comes from this principle. Ve'ulam milvad zeh mikra. However, besides from the pasuk that we cited before, ba'u ha'arot b'chtuvei Torah yoru al mitzvat ha'ibur. There are clear indications from other psukim in the Torah that demonstrate the need for this. Vehu mashekatuv. This is what it says in this week's parasha again. Veshamarta et hachuka hazot lemoada. You shall observe this decree in its designated time. What is this chok is referring to Korban Pesach. So it has to be brought annually at its designated time. And it also says vechen, also in this week's parasha, shamor et chodesh ha'aviv, that you have to observe the month of Aviv, which is a month of not spring, although modern day Hebrew is spring, is referring to ripening, the month of ripening, because that's when the grain ripens in the month of Nisan, and that's when you bring the Korban Pesach. Beinyan mitzvah ken, the description how to fulfill this mitzvah. Shebaim shnei Yisraelim kesharim livnei bet din. The two Jews who are kosher, fit to be witnesses, they come to bet din, they come to court. They tell the judges, we saw the new moon. And then Bet Din establishes Rosh Chodesh based on their testimony. And they say, today is sanctified. So you see, he addresses a problem. Why do we need ordained judges to sanctify Rosh Chodesh? The reason is, because since it says that the renewal of the moon needs to be for you, gedolim usmuchim kemotchem, for future generation is performed by great sages who are ordained similar to lachem, similar to you. Who were the great sages at the time that this mitzvah was given? Moshe and Aaron. That's who Hashem was talking to. So therefore, it has to be similar to you, which means you have to be ordained. Be'od darshu adavar, the rabbis also said, since the start of the mitzvah says, speak to all the children of Israel, that those who sanctify the month have the permission of everyone. This is in reference to the great rabbis of Israel, like the great Sanhedrin. Anybody that is a sage of the Jewish people and was ordained in Israel, through the well-known process of ordination, he has permission to perform this mitzvah. Even outside of Israel. assuming that he has not left anyone of his stature in Israel. וכן מצינו שעשו כן חנניה בן אחי רבי יהושע ועקיבא בן יוסף שהיו בעניין זה. We find Hananiah, the son of the brother of Rabbi Yeshua, and Rabbi Akiva, the son of Yosef, acted this way, that they were mekadesh tachodesh, they sanctified the month even though it was outside of Israel. Aval birti tenaim, but without that condition, that there was no one else in Israel to do it, en reshut leshum adam Yisrael likboa chodashim ulaber shanim, no member can do it, whether in Israel or outside of Israel. So you need two conditions. You need to be ordained in Israel, okay? And you have to do it in Israel unless you are outside of Israel and there's nobody great enough like you to do it in Israel. So in the case of Rabbi Akiva, he only did because there was no one in Israel to do it. And that's why he did it outside of Israel. V'im tish'al. Now, you might ask, im ken, if so, that we require rabbis, nowadays, we have people that are ordained, we have rabbis with smicha, but it's not really the same. You should know we received the following tradition. Rabbi Hillel Nasi beno Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Hillel, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the one who compiled the Mishnayot. Shaya gadol bedoro v'nismach ba'aretz. He was ordained in Israel. Ve'hu hachacham shetiken lanu cheshbon ha'ibur. He was the one who worked the calculation of the lunar cycle. All the calendars that we have now was from this Hillel. It wasn't Hillel and Shammai, it was a different Hillel. It was from this Hillel, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Hu kidesh chodashim ve'iber shanim atidim lavo ad sheyavo Eliyahu. He did it, set up the cycle until Eliyahu Navi comes. And when Eliyahu Navi comes, smicha will be restored. The original smicha ordination will come back, and therefore the same process of Rosh Chodesh and intercalation will resume. And this is what we rely on today. Everything that we said until now was according to Maimonides, the Rambam. Ramban Nachmanides, Zichrono Ivracha, Yachshov Kiddush HaChodesh mitzvah achat. He holds that Rosh Chodesh is one mitzvah, ve'ibur shanim mitzvah achat. And adding a month, intercalating a month into the year, is a separate mitzvah on its own. And his proofs are recorded in his Sefer HaMitzvot. The pasuk that teaches us about the mitzvah to intercalate the month into the year, Kelomar, that is to say, like we said, calculating the seasons so that everything falls in place. You shall observe this decree in its right time. Now, what is the purpose of this mitzvah? Now that I know what the mitzvah is, what is the purpose? Mishorshe mitzvah, I think it's important to note, maybe I should have done this in the first mitzvah. We did, when we learned it last year, we spoke about it. The Sefer HaChinuch usually divides his every mitzvah in three categories, generally. Sometimes there's a bit more. There's the what is the mitzvah, then there's what is the purpose of the mitzvah, and then there are what are the laws of this mitzvah, or where to find the laws of the mitzvah and who it applies to. So now that we've learned what the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh is about, we can actually look at what the purpose of the mitzvah is. Mishorshe mitzvah zu, the purpose of this mitzvah, Kedesh yasu Yisrael moadei Hashem bizmanat. We want Bnei Israel to observe the holidays in the right time. She'Hashem yiparach tziva la'asot Pesach bizman shetevu aviv. God wanted Pesach to be observed when the crops were ripe. Kemo shekatuv shamor et chodesh aviv ve'asita Pesach. You shall observe the month and make the korban Pesach. V'chag Sukkot bizman ha'asif. And Sukkot needs to be at the time of the harvest. That is autumn. That's what the pasuk tells us, that the festival of harvest is at the season of the new year. And if we didn't intercalate months into the year and add a month every so often, the holidays would not come in their proper time. This is because the Jewish people calculate their holidays and their months according to the lunar year. Shehem, which is Shin Nun Daled Yom, 354 days. Chet Sha'ot, 8 hours. Taf Ayin Vav Chalakim, and 876 parts, which is 48 2/3 minutes. Vehi chasera mishnat hachama yud yamim kaf aleph shaot reish dalet chalakim, which is shorter than the solar year by 10 days, 21 hours, and 204 chalakim, which is also a few minutes. So therefore, Siman Yud Kaf Aleph Reish Dalef, if you want to remember that, just remember those letters, but okay, we're not going to get into that. Ubishul HaTevuot ve'apelot bekocha shechama. Now, what causes the grain and the crops to ripen? That is as a result of the sun, the strength of the sun. That increases in the spring and definitely in the summer, and then lessens. Nimsa she'iluleh ha'ibud, if not for the intercalation, shanu mashvim bo shnot ha'lebana b'shnot ha'chama, where we synchronize lunar and solar, lo yavo ha'pesach b'zman ha'aviv, ve'asukot b'zman ha'asif. Pesach would not occur during the time of the ripening of the crops, and Sukkot would not occur during the time of the harvest. One moment. V'nitkana davar le'asot b'gdolei ador, the matter has been something that was performed by the greatest scholars of the generation, shehu inyan chokhmah gdola, because this requires great wisdom. Additionally, it's been said on the basis of this that the coming events, I skipped the line, concern the crops can be predicted. It's therefore unfitting to be entrusted unless it's the greatest or most pious people. Yes?
Is there a source in the written Torah for the 24-hour day?
In the Torah, 24-hour day? No, it's that's how long it takes the sun to. Yeah, we don't have 60-minute hours. We have 24 period divided by 12. We have 24-hour. Right, days are divided by 12, nights are divided by 12, and depending on where you are in the season. There is remazim. I said one in my shiur. V'samti chadkod shimshotayich. I said that in the shiur the other day. That was 2 weeks ago. I said that kadkod is 24. Shimshotayich of your shemesh. Shimshotayich means your shamash, those serving you. Okay, but there's also a kaf daled there towards shemesh. There's remazim in the Navi, but I don't think there's a direct pasuk that tells me that there's 24 hours in a day. In the Navi, yeah. That's Shir HaShirim. It's V'samticha kol shimshotayich. Yeah. Dinei mitzvah. The laws of the mitzvah, a lot of them. Kegon chakirat edut hachodesh. For example, interrogating the witnesses who come to tell you that they saw the moon. Ve'iyum ha'edim lifamim, and the occasional times where we have to intimidate the witness. Ve'din chilul Shabbat be'edut zu ketzad, and the laws of which we desecrate even Shabbat for the delivering of this testimony. There's all these things are mentioned in the halachot. Ve'alma me'abrin et hashana, on account of what do we intercalate the year? Ve'alma en me'abrin ota, and on what circumstances do we not intercalate the year? Ve'en ze chodesh hayu me'abrin, ve'ez ze chodesh hayu me'abrin ve'hu adar, and which month is added, and that's adar, and not other months. Kemo shedashu zichronai v'racha, like the rabbis expounded. V'shamarta tachuka azot lemo'ada. What does it mean that it's designated time? Melamed she'en me'aberin tashana ela beperek hasamuch lamoed. We only intercalate the month into the year at the period closest to Pesach, which is Adar. Ve'od darshu zichronai v'racha pasuk zeh. The rabbis also expounded. Minayin she'en me'aberin et hachodesh. Where do we know that Bet Din does not intercalate the month into the year? Ela bayom, except during the daytime. That's when they announce it. Tamud lomar miyamim yamima. We read this every morning. Kadesh Kol Bechor miyamim yamima, but it's also this week's parasha from day to day. Ve'od darshu zichronai v'racha. The rabbis also said in Masechet Megillah, lechodshe hashana comes to teach me chodashim ata mechashev leshana. You intercalate years with whole months. Ve'i ata mechashev yamim. We don't calculate years with days. So you need to, if you're going to add, you have to add an entire month. Ve'od amru be'inyan zeh, chodesh yamim, a month of days. Yamim ata mechashev lechodesh. You calculate months with whole days. Ve'i ata mechashev sha'ot. But you don't calculate months with hours, meaning we don't begin or end a month in the beginning, in the middle of a day. It has to start a new day. V'yeter peratea mevoarim b'masechet Rosh Hashanah. If you want to know more of these details, it's found in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Ubarishon shel Sanhedrin, the first chapter of Masechet Sanhedrin. Ubibrachot kemochen as well as Masechet Brachot. V'noheget bechol makom. This mitzvah to declare Rosh Chodesh applies in every location. ובכל זמן שיהיו לנו חכמים סמוכים בתנאים שכתבנו. And in all times where we have rabbis who are ordained, fitting the criteria that we said before, ועובר עליה ולא עשה, one who transgresses this mitzvah and does not do it, אם הוא חכם שראוי לה, if you are a sage that is able to do it, ביטל עשה ועונשו גדול מאוד. You have violated a mitzvah obligation, and your punishment is very great. Shegorem kilkula moadot, because now you are causing all the holidays to be twisted and corrupted and not being observed in the proper time, and that's not good. Ve'achshav ba'avonotenu she'en anu me'aberin shanim al pi simuchim. Nowadays, due to our sins, that we don't have, we have not merited to have chachamim, and therefore we don't intercalate months into years. Anu samchim becheshbonenu ala cheshbon hamkubam Rabbi Hillel. Therefore, we only rely on the tradition that we have from Rabbi Hillel, kemo shekatabnu. We still have a couple minutes, so maybe I'll just read. They have here a nice insight here on Rosh Chodesh. On the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh, we recite Birkat HaChodesh, the blessing on the new moon. This recitation includes prayers that the coming month be good and blessed for all of Bnei Yisrael. The purpose of this, we did this last Shabbat, purpose of this blessing is not to sanctify Rosh Chodesh as was done in ancient times, for that was the prerogative of Bet Din. Moreover, according to Chinuch and Ramban, that task was fulfilled for our times by the Bet Din Rabbi Hillel HaNasi when he established a calendar. Rather, this blessing is intended to inform the congregation of the upcoming date of Rosh Chodesh, so that people will be aware of the upcoming Rosh Chodesh and fulfill its requirements. So what we did last Shabbat has nothing to do we're replicating and copying what they used to do in the olden days. No, we're announcing Rosh Chodesh to say, on Thursday, make sure you say Ya'aleh v'yavo during your Amidah, and you don't forget, because if you forget, you're going to have to repeat your Amidah. So despite the fact that Birkat HaChodesh is not a fulfillment of the ancient sanctification of Rosh Chodesh through Bedin, many do find allusions to that ancient procedure in a number of customs surrounding the Birkat HaChodesh recitation. One custom of Birkat HaChodesh that may find its roots in those ancient proceedings is a custom to stand during the recitation. It's not the custom by many Moroccans, but I know a lot of Sfaradim do stand by it, and Ashkenazim do stand. The Magen Avraham explains that this is done in commemoration of the ancient sanctification of Rosh Chodesh, which was done while standing. Rabbi Akiva Eger, however, finds his statement puzzling, noting that we do not find any indication that Bet Din would stand during the sanctification of Rosh Chodesh. If anything, the opposite would seem to be the case. For the Mishnah specifically notes that the judges would sit when they heard the testimony of the witnesses who stood before them. And upon accepting their testimony, they would declare the day to be sanctified. The implication is that Bet Din remained seated throughout the entire process. So how do you make sense of the Magen Avraham? He says, some explain the Magen Avraham does not refer to judges of Bet Din, for they sat, rather refers to the people in attendance. The practice was that after the head of the Bet Din declared the month to be Kadosh, all those in attendance would respond, Mekudash, Mekudash. It is sanctified. These people said this declaration while standing. So it's an interesting little note here insight about the bracha Birkat HaChodesh, which we recited last week. Okay, Yehi Ratzon this month should be a month of happiness, a month of good tidings, a month of Geula Shlema and Refuah Shlema for everyone that needs it. Amen. Yehi Ratzon.